It's end of May, and I just finished Ali Hall's theory class. And on Monday next week, I'll start speed building officially at Anoka Tech. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I'd like to tell you a little bit more about how that process worked. To transfer to Anoka Tech, I had to test out of their theory class. And the way that worked ended up being a two-stage process where I had an initial meeting with Jennifer Satie, who is the faculty advisor of the court reporting program there. And that first meeting, we got to know each other, and I was able to ask some questions about the program. And then she asked me oral questions about my theory. So, how would you write certain words, and why is that? That kind of thing. And I would write it in the chat box. I found that the easiest way. And then we did a little test, 60 words per minute dictation, kind of a sanity check. And she looked that over briefly just to see how that turned out. And that seemed to go well. So then the next part of the process was to get some administrative stuff done. We had to get some forms filled out and processed through the college. And then we had another meeting that was on May 12th on Zoom, where I took more tests to officially pass out of theory. And the requirement to test out of theory at Anoka Tech is to take a 40 words per minute dictation, 5 minutes, and pass it at 97%. That's the standard pass threshold at Anoka Tech. And also to take a 60 words per minute, 5 minute dictation. And that one, Jennifer said, would be hopefully also a pass, but maybe a near pass would also be adequate to start speed building. And at Anoka Tech, all of the tests are given orally by the teacher, normally in class. For me, it was in these private Zoom sessions. This is as opposed to, I believe most schools these days are doing tests via two different softwares. One is called EV360 and the other one is called Real Time Coach. There's two other schools I'm aware of that do testing this way still, and those are West Valley College and College of Marin. So those were the requirements, and I ended up asking for an additional 80 word per minute test because I thought I could pass it. So what we ended up doing is taking a 5 minute, 60 word dictation test and an 80 word per minute dictation test. And I ended up passing both of those at 100%. These were both edit or transcription tests. Jennifer graded the tests for me while I just waited around on Zoom. And so she thought, okay, let's try a 100 word per minute test while we're at it. So I gave that a try. And I got 98.6%, I believe, on the 100 word per minute test. So we decided to schedule another meeting to try and pass out of the first speed building class, which is 80 through 100 word per minute goal class. And a week later, I had that second testing session with Adrian, who is a speed building instructor at Anoka Tech. And she was also very nice. And at that meeting, which was on May 20, I had the chance to take 4 100 word per minute tests, each of them 5 minutes. And then from those 4, I could choose 2 that I thought went the best and edit those transcripts, turn them in for grading. I ended up deciding to just submit the first 2. I think my focus got worse over time. And I scored 98 and 99% on those 2 tests I turned in. Adrian graded them within 24 hours. So I tested out of both theory and the 80 through 100 words per minute speed building class. And that was pretty exciting. And one thing I'm really happy about when it comes to these tests is that I thought I could pass them, and I did. So that means my self-evaluations just from trying out dictations on YouTube or whatever and self-grading myself, at least at this point, is pretty accurate. That's a good feeling. I'd like to share some other insights or thoughts I had about the test experience. First of all, I got to try out beta blockers for the first time. I definitely feel nervous when I play piano for other people. My hands definitely shake a little bit. So I wasn't surprised to see the first time I met with Jennifer, I was not on beta blockers, and my hands definitely shook while I was doing that test 60 word per minute dictation with her. The second meeting with Jennifer Sati, I took the lowest dose possible of beta blockers, and it completely worked for me. So that was pretty cool. Was notably calmer during the dictation tests. And at the third meeting, which was with Adrian, where I took the 100 word per minute tests, I forgot to take my beta blockers. So I felt the hands shaking thing again, but interestingly enough, I passed at the same percentage as I had passed at the week before. So maybe from one week to the next, I improved enough that even shaking hands didn't matter. I don't know. So for me, beta blockers work, and I would recommend checking them out if you also have this hands shaking nerve problem. Another insight I had from these first few tests that I've ever taken is that editing tests takes a lot of time. Like, all my tests were very clean, but it still took a lot of time to look through them and decide, okay, where do I put these commas? Do I capitalize this? Actually, does email have a dash? That kind of thing. Maybe it's actually the case that the test you think is a pass takes more time to edit in a certain way because you want to be really careful and check everything. But I can't imagine testing every day and putting that much time and attention to my editing. That would be too much work. Other interesting things to note as I start speed building is that Anoka Tech has a different speed building structure than most other schools. Most schools will make you pass one test from each of the 3 RPR categories per speed. So one lit test, one jury charge test, and one Q&A test. And at Anoka Tech, they also require you to pass 3 tests at each speed, but each of the 3 tests is the same category. So that is quite different. For example, at 80 words per minute, all of the tests are letters. So they will start off, "Dear Sir," and end, "Sincerely yours." Some of the letters are short, so they actually have to read multiple letters within 5 minutes. The letters are very cute. They seem to harken back to the shorthand teaching era when the goal of a shorthand student was to be able to produce a so-called mailable letter. So I like those. The 100 word per minute tests were all literary tests, although one of the 5 tests I took was very testimony flavored. So they are prepping you for testimony. And I will be starting the 120 through 140 goal speed building class on Monday. It'll be twice a week, 2.5 hours each class. And all of the 120 word per minute tests will be Q&A. And I've heard that Anoka will always try to bring in a second speaker for the 2 voice tests, which is very cool if that's true. And 140 word per minute tests are congressional record or literary tests. The congressional record is the official daily transcript from the United States Congress. And then 160 is medical testimony. 180 is literary with a jury charge focus. 200 is jury charge, and 225 is Q&A again. I'm also going to be taking their CAT software class this summer. They use CaseCat, and yeah, that's how 80 through 100 went for me, and a little what's ahead for me. Right now, I think 120 Q&A feels fast. And I know 120 through 140 tend to be challenging speed bumps for many court reporting students, so I'm curious to see how the class goes for me. I'll definitely record another vlog when I finish the 120 through 140 speed building class, whether that's when I pass out of it or when the summer term ends, but I'm not sure whether that will be my next video. I've got some video ideas, maybe me attempting a new matter dictation and critiquing it afterwards, or going over exactly how I practice during theory, including how much time I put in and all of that. But I'm not sure. What are you all interested in? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.